Hi everyone! Today we're gonna talk about death metal. I'm gonna show you my 10 ultimate death metal albums. It's gonna be one album per band, and I'm gonna include a couple of really obscure, cool albums that I don't think you have heard. If you want me to make a separate video about underrated, obscure death metal bands, please tell me in the comments and I will think about making one. Since this video is in alphabetical order, we'll jump right to a true death metal classic, Autopsy's Severed Survival from 1989. I know most fans of Autopsy tend to recommend the second album, Mental Funeral, but I think the debut is even sharper. It takes what was started with Scream Bloody Gore to another level. It's a simple, gruesome, groovy album with extremely good riffs and vocals that are unbelievably savage. The cover art is absolutely classic and the tracklist is filled with awesome tracks. It includes Rhythm with Disease, Disembowel, the title track, Shard Remains and many other immortal tracks. It's a very original and influential album, and many bands try to replicate it without succeeding. The next album on the list is something entirely different, Benighted's Identisick from 2006. Benighted is a French brutal death metal band similar to Suffocation, Aborted and Autopsy. They have a really unique style. It's almost like they're crafting pop songs in a brutal death metal style. No band I've heard has quite done it as Benighted, and it's especially obvious on the Identisick album. All of the tracks are unbelievably catchy and filled with energy that translates perfect in a live setting. The band also has plenty of other quality albums, but I don't think any of them comes close to Identisick. The next band we're gonna talk about is the Norwegian riff machine Bloodbath and their 2005 album Altered Genesis. Altered Genesis is an album that we used to listen to at every metal party back in 2005 and 2006. I still listen to it all the time. And the main reason is that the riffs are amazing. Every song has like 5 or 6 riffs that just get stuck in your head immediately. Beyond the guitar playing, it's also a really well written album. Many of the songs have perfect breakdown passages, perfect transitions. It's a really loud, abrasive, macho sounding death metal album to a core. There's not much in terms of variation or dynamics on the albums. It's just full on blast beats, breakdowns and riffs. But it's okay in this case, because it's just so damn good. Bloodbath also has plenty of other good albums worth checking out, but I think Altered Genesis will always remain my favorite. Now we're gonna move from Norway to Sweden and talk about the Crown's album Deathrace King from 2000. This is another album that I've listened to unbelievably much over the years. It has a really unique music approach, mixing melodic death metal, thrash metal and pure rock and roll into an inferno of satanic blast beats. It's a really fast, intense album with great drumming and massive hooks in every song. Now we're gonna move on to a band that could have had like 7 albums on this list. And of course, it's Death. I've chosen Symbolic as the album on my list. I could have chosen Human or Individual Thought Patterns over Symbolic, but I feel that the tracklist on Symbolic is just unbeatable. Every track on this is a classic. I know some true death metal fans will probably spite me over this choice since it's a really polished and poppy album. But no matter how melodic or progressive songs like Crystal Mountain become, it's just an unbelievably well written album. So, from what's by far the lightest album on the list, we're gonna switch to one of the most raw albums on the list. Dismember's Like an Everflowing Stream. Like an Everflowing Stream is the ultimate Swedish death metal album for me. It's extremely brutal, nasty and angry. At the same time it has a melodic edge and really good songwriting. It also has a unique deranged feeling that Dismember didn't quite manage to replicate on their other records. The tracklist and flow of the album is also something that makes a big difference. Dismember wrote some really long tracks like Dismembered and Overrated Overture. On the same album you also have these 2-minute bangers like Soon to Be Dead and Skinner Alive. It all fits together really well. And Matti Kärki's Madman screams are of course the perfect thing to top this off. Let's move from one classic Stockholm death metal band to another. Entombed of course. But not Left Hand Path. I feel that Left Hand Path really is the Bible when it comes to Swedish death metal. Everything from guitars to vocals to the songwriting is spawned on that album. But somehow Clandestine is much more exciting. It also has a better tracklist than Left Hand Path. Many people dislike Nicky Andersson's session vocal delivery, but I've really learned to like it over the years. Let's move from Swedish to American death metal. Immolation is a band that's unbelievably consistent. I could have chosen 3 or 4 other albums for this list. Unholy Cult from 2002 is my favorite for several reasons. It has a really hellish, suffocating atmosphere, both when it comes to the guitar work, the vocals and the production sound. It features my favorite Immolation song, Reluctant Messiah, along with many other classics. I could have chosen Close to a World Below or Majesty and Decay for the list, but I still think that this album is slightly better. From Immolation we're gonna move on to the most obscure band on the list, Infinitum and their album The Sixth Extinction from 2012. This Australian technical death metal band made 2 amazing albums before slowly disappearing from the scene. I'm really surprised that they didn't get more famous, because their sound is really cool. They're kind of like a melodic Suffocation, focusing on great riffs and a fluent songwriting that's way more mature than the band is expected to have. The second album really sounds like a veteran band producing one of their absolute best albums. If you haven't heard this band, I strongly urge you to check them out. And if anyone from Infinitum is watching this video, please make another album. From a band that sounds a lot like Suffocation to the actual Suffocation, the last album on this list is Suffocation's 1995 album Pierced from Within. This album really has everything that I like about technical death metal. It's not as influential as the debut album, but the songwriting and the riffs and the atmosphere in this album is unbeatable. It's got a lot of feeling, which is something different for a technical death metal album. The sound is actually pretty organic and unpolished, despite the awesome guitar playing and drum playing. What makes it truly awesome, however, is the tracklist. It starts off with 2 immortal classics, Pierced from Within and Thrones of Blood. It pretty much continues in that class throughout the entire album. I don't think any technical death metal album compares when it comes to the tracklist actually. Since the actual top 10 is done now, I'm gonna move on to 5 honorary mentions. The 4 first albums are probably familiar to everyone, and they should be. But the 5th one, I don't think many of you have heard. Eusippian is a Danish band that only released 1 full length before disappearing. This album is filled with cool riffs. It suffers from a pretty crappy production job, unfortunately, but the riffs remind me a lot of Blooded Throne. It also has a bunch of cool atmospheric parts. Despite the crappy production, I'm pretty surprised that this band didn't go a bit bigger. If you haven't heard Eusippian, you should really check them out. I hope you found some new cool band in this video. I'm gonna put links to all the bands below so you can find their music. Thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe if you like my vlogs. I'm gonna make more of them in the future. Since there hasn't been any music in this video, since I don't want to get in copyright trouble, I'm gonna post one of my own songs instead. This is The Faceless God by my death metal band Desolator. I think you will like it if you're a fan of Morbid Angel or Immolation. Enjoy! Until next time.